So we've been off for the past couple of weeks, talking with our families, reintroducing ourselves to them, because as you guys know, during football season, we become hermits. We become football hermits. But we're back after a long and I would say maybe not restful, but we'll talk about that in the back half of the show. Break.
These headphones are all squeaky. I don't know what happened. They're like stiff. They need some
good to be back.
WD-40 on them.
While we were gone, there was a fair amount of football that continued to happen across the state of Texas and involving the state of Texas. And so let's talk a little bit about some of the big headlines. We're going to start with, obviously,
Go Frogs!
The biggest news, which is that for the first time since 2010, a team from Texas is going to play for the national championship
Let's
game.
go!
As TCU defeated Michigan in the Fiesta Bowl to advance to the national championship game, while they will take on the number one team in the nation, the Georgia Bulldogs. How locked into this game were you?
Not super. I didn't have a chance to watch that one as much. I went back and watched a lot of the highlights and stuff. I did watch the entire night game, but I didn't get to see that one much.
I thought that for TCU, what is so funny is that they hung 51 on Michigan, and I thought their quarterback didn't play particularly well. And I also thought they gave up 45 to Michigan, and I thought their defense played pretty well. Like, this is one of those don't look at the box score type games, because the numbers are not going to be particularly kind to TCU's defense. And yet, I thought that for the most part, they held up in a big way against a Michigan team that was supposed to run all over them. The word coming into that game was, TCU's run defense is going to have a hell of a time slowing down Michigan. And Michigan, first play of the game, busted off like a 54-yard run. Yeah. And I was like, uh-oh.
I did see. I was watching that live, and I was like, oh, Frogs.
But after that, they settled in. And the defense, I thought, played particularly well. They got 2 pick sixes. I thought D. Winters was all over the place. He was masterful in this game. They had 13 tackles for loss in this game. 13 tackles for loss. You do that, you're going to win a lot of ball games. The defense, I thought, played really well for the most part. Well, they gave up some big plays, but they were played pretty well.
Especially like you said, there's no doubt the TCU defense heard all the weeks leading up to it. They're not going to be able to stop them. But this is also a Michigan team that is used to playing on a really big stage. When's the last time that a TCU defense has had to come up and really play on a big stage? They haven't.
Yeah. And so this was, I thought that the first quarter was really important, and that first drive, especially the end of the first drive. And you heard some of the linebackers and some of the defensive players say it after the game. It got to be 4th and goal at the 2 for Michigan on their opening drive. And Michigan runs the Philly special, where they run kind of the reverse throwback to the quarterback, and TCU sniffs it out. And after the game, I believe Craven was there. I know Craven was there. I don't know if he was there when this particular comment got made. But the TCU defenders were basically saying, yeah, we knew we had them at that point. Because if they're reaching into the bag on the opening drive when it's 4th and goal at the 2, and this is supposed to be this big, bad, menacing Big Ten team that's going to run all over us, and they're not going to line it up and try to run it through us, then yeah, we know we got them.
Yep.
And sure enough, they held on in a big way. On the other side, what's so interesting is that the Heisman finalist quarterback for TCU, Max Duggan, I don't think he played particularly well.
No, he did that Max Duggan thing where he did enough, but he wasn't the game changer this game. He has been the game changer more this year, but not this game.
The game changer for them was their ability to run the ball. Amari DiMarcado had really lifted the running game when Kendre Miller went down. We don't know the status of Kendre Miller for the championship game. But the running game really I thought that TCU up front was really good in this game on the offensive line and on the defensive line. And did enough. And once again, it's another one-score game, but they win it again. And
Which there's experience in doing that coming into
Yes,
fruition.
absolutely. And so now they move on to the national championship game, which is Monday. We'll have a big preview kind of throughout the week, and then of course Monday we'll break it down in a big way. But TCU will play Georgia in the national championship game. They will be underdogs. They will be sizable underdogs. I think the last time I saw it, they were 13-point underdogs to Georgia. I have not been particularly impressed with Georgia's defense of late.
They had a lot of injuries too in that late game. Like, I'm not saying
one of their tight ends went out, which is really important in what they do. We'll see. I think TCU is an understandable underdog in this game, but I think they were an understandable underdog against Michigan. And so we'll see. They'll have to, they've got an opportunity to win the first national championship for the state of Texas since 2005. When Texas did it, they will play for the first championship since 2010. Pretty remarkable. And for a first-year coach and Sonny Dykes to do that is pretty spectacular. So TCU through to the national championship game on Monday. That was really good news for Texas postseason teams. And
ultimately the most important news, honestly.
Yes, absolutely.
Like,
sure.
all due respect to bowl games, but not all bowl games are built the same.
Talk about top of the table there. Because, then
it kind
of, so the state of Texas, I put finishes. There is one more game, obviously, the national championship game. But for now, everyone has played their originally scheduled bowl games. And the 9 bowl teams in Texas won a grand total of 3-6. 3-6. I believe that's the case. Is that right? Or is it 3-5? Whatever it is. They were the bowl season has
No, it is 3-5 because there was only 8 teams.
That's right. Texas State.
Yep.
UTEP.
North Texas
and A&M. That's right. So it was only 8. So 3-5, I should say. Finished 3-5 in bowl games. It was a rough bowl season for Texas.
Yeah.
Now, part of it, in my opinion, is that there were some really good bowl matchups that I think, more or less. For example, the first bowl game was while we were at state championships. It was the Cure Bowl with UTSA and Troy, which is just a great ball game. Troy ends up winning that game 18-12, but that was a matchup of teams that entered the game both as 11-win teams. So part of that is like, okay, well, that's just a really good ball game. Rice Rice now finishes with the very bizarre 5-8 record.
Yeah, that is weird.
As they get beat, they give up 329 yards to Frank Gore Jr. on the ground and lose to Southern Miss in the Lending Tree Bowl. SMU loses a heartbreaker. They can't come back and beat BYU in the New Mexico Bowl. North Texas hung tough with Boise State, but in the end it was not enough as they lose the Frisco Bowl. So that was problematic there for the state of Texas. I actually, and we'll talk about why, but I actually watched a decent amount of the Armed Forces Bowl, and I'm not sure why. But I do know why.
Well, you couldn't go outside because it was freezing.
I also couldn't go outside because I had the flu.
Oh, yeah, that.
And so I watched Air Force beat up Baylor.
Yeah.
Now,
they were not prepared for that weather.
They weren't prepared for that weather,
all.
and Air Force ran all over.
Yeah.
I mean, it was something to behold, and I thought Baylor was not particularly impressive there in the Armed Forces Bowl. We finally got our first win in the Independence Bowl with a wild comeback as Houston beats Louisiana in the Independence Bowl.
Go Cougs.
The Cougs get the win. Finally got Texas in the win column.
Apparently there were people like trapped in the elevator because it's
really?
It's at it was in Shreveport, which is not the best facility.
We kept it. I have been to the Independence Bowl.
It's rough.
A stadium. We kept the good vibes going as Tech beats Ole Miss.
That was a big win
in the Texas Bowl, and I thought they looked great.
Yeah, they really did.
And in a lot of ways, bowls are kind of a measurement of how much you care about the bowl game. And I don't want to hear because this it's very famous that the people from the SEC are going to be like, oh man, well they just didn't care about the bowl game though more than that. That's why USC is certainly going to complain oh well Tulane just wanted to.
Tulane won their national championship.
Yeah, they cared about it more. It's like, well, you still lost.
Yeah.
And Tech looked like a team that was playing
to prove something.
And I thought that what you saw from Tyler Shuck was pretty darn good. They ran the ball pretty well. And Tech gets a nice win over Ole Miss in the Texas Bowl, the TaxAct Texas Bowl.
Which again, say whatever that you want about bowl games being not important or whatever, but this was the prime example for me of a program that's going to utilize that to really push that forward, and an Ole Miss team that's going to be like.
The other things about it is you get 3 extra weeks of practice.
Yeah,
and that's so important.
That's huge.
We talk with high school coaches that they say winning playoff games. What that does is it gets you extra weeks of practice.
Yeah.
Which it builds
especially
on
under a first-year head coach.
Absolutely.
That's invaluable.
Absolutely. The Alamo Bowl. Did you watch any of the Alamo Bowl?
No.
Washington and Texas.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to watch Texas lose in the Alamo Bowl again.
I thought Quinn Ewers actually looked pretty good. And I also thought that they very, 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 very obviously missed Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, well, and Demarion Overshone was out, and Rashawn Johnson was out.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I didn't watch it.
They couldn't run the ball particularly well, and that was a big problem. But so Washington beats Texas in the Alamo Bowl, and then was that and then we had TCU Michigan. So there you go. It was there's a little bowl recap for what we saw. Other things that we missed while we were gone.
At one of the bowl games.
At
this
the TaxAct Texas Bowl.
Presented by Kroger. Well, the award is.
You got to see the 2022 Mr. Texas Football Player of the Year crowned.
Yeah.
As Timpson's Terry Bussey was named the 2022 Mr. Texas Football Player of the Year, presented by the TaxAct Texas Bowl and Kroger. It was a tough choice for us, as always. But when you take a look at what he was able to do last year, he was a juggernaut at Timpson. He had 4,773 yards of total offense and 80 total touchdowns. 80 total touchdowns. And was the most dominant player. He was, in our opinion, my opinion as well, I share it, but in our opinion, he was the most dynamic and dangerous individual player in the state of Texas. It was a tough decision. We sat around and we debated it, and it was a tough. There's a lot of really worthy candidates, but in the end, we kept coming back to Terry Bussey. And what a dominant player he was, and how impressive he was, leading Timpson to the state semifinals. And we thought he was the best player in the state. That's why he's Mr. Texas Football.
And my favorite part about this award is there are so many awards that look at like future projections of what the student athlete is going to do. Like, are they going to be a first-round draft pick in the NFL? Like, this is solely what they did in high school. Like, you are the hometown hero, you are the hometown legend, and I feel like that's exactly what Terry Bussey is. Can he be the first-round draft pick?
Yeah.
Sure, man, go for it. Likely, probably not. But gosh darn it, you want to talk about a team that needed their guy to be able to get as far as they've done every single year? It's him.
He was the most outstanding high school football player in the state of Texas in 2022. That is our opinion. Dave Campbell's Texas Football, and that's why he's our Mr. Texas Football Player of the Year. He is, by the way, the first underclassman, just the second underclassman to ever win the trophy. The other one was Kyler Murray in 2013. But he was in our opinion, he was the most outstanding high school football player in the state of Texas, which is why he was the Mr. Texas Football Player of the Year for 2022. And then two more things I think we got real quick. One, it's coaching change season. And we'll have a lot of them up on TexasFootball.com. Joe Willis from Tyler Legacy announced his retirement today. Matt Stepp is going to have all these covered for you at TexasFootball.com.
Presented by North Texas Honda Dealers.
Thank you. But one that really caught our eye, and obviously has big doings, is that Arlington Martin is looking for a coach for the first time in almost 2 decades, as Bob Wager, the longtime head coach at Arlington Martin, is leaving Arlington Martin to join the staff at Nebraska under Matt Rule. This feels like copy-paste from what he did at Baylor, where, if you remember, at Baylor, one of the concerns we had, go back and run the tape when he got hired at Baylor, and we talked about it on this show. One of the concerns was, this is a Yankee. Like, this is like, Matt Rule is a guy from the Northeast. Like, what does he know about Texas and stuff? So what he did was he went out and he hired Texas bona fides. He hired Texas hired guns, right? And so he hired Joey Maguire, now the head coach of Texas Tech, and he hired David Wetzel, the head coach, who is still, I believe, the head of high school relations there at Baylor. He also brought in Sean Bell, who was an alumnus as well. He loaded up on Texas high school football coaches, right? Well-respected, well-known, well-liked Texas high school football coaches. This feels like the same thing in Nebraska. He wants to continue. He knows that he needs a pipeline to the state of Texas. And so he goes, well, let's go and let's hire Bob Wager onto our staff. Here's the other thing, and maybe this is getting overlooked because, like, for example, when Maguire got hired at at Baylor, I believe he was brought on as like a tight ends coach, and like Joey Maguire knows a lot about football, and I'm sure those were supremely well coached tight ends. But let's be real about why Joey Maguire was there. Joey Maguire was there to be kind of a Texas high school football liaison in a lot of ways, right? Yes, he was an on-field coach, but in that way. I do not think that's the case with Bob Wager, because Bob Wager is being hired as the special teams coordinator. I believe the co-special teams coordinator.
Which one makes sense? The dude knows his way around special teams.
That's exactly my point. You go and look at Arlington Martin.
Yep.
They are special teams fiends there at Arlington Martin, and always have been. Always have been. And so I do not necessarily think this is some sort of, let's go and, just hire a guy and give him a position. I think they hired him, yes, because of the Texas bona fides, and he's going to have that connection to the state of Texas as far as a recruiting pipeline. That is important. But I also said, well, we're hiring this guy, we might as well put him into a place where he knows his stuff, and he knows special teams.
Did you see who Matt Rule hired as his wide receivers coach?
No, I didn't.
A 23-year-old? Do you know who that 23-year-old is?
Is it me?
You're not 23. Neither am I. Joey Maguire's son.
Oh, did he really? He hired Garrett?
Yeah, Garrett is leaving the Panthers and going to be the wide receivers coach at under Matt Rule.
I did not see that, but congratulations to Garrett.
How cool is that?
That is cool. Savvy. Very savvy. It's not
Here comes the recruiting wars between son and father.
Not just a hat rack there on Matt Rule. So that's big news. And so of course Arlington Martin's going to be a big job opening.
That's a huge job opening.
I believe Stepp has said that he would right now place his wager on an internal hire, but we will see exactly because that's going to be a big time opening.
Yeah, because I believe that Wager's had his same guys with him for quite a while.
And finally. Speaking of recruiting, the number one prospect in the state of Texas and the cover boy of the 2022 Dave Campbell's Texas Football Rising magazine, David Hicks, Katy Paetow defensive end David Hicks, has signed with Texas A&M. He was a guy who was a longtime A&M commit, but was on severe flip watch. Everyone was looking at him because he took an official visit to Oregon, and he went up to Oklahoma, and he was starting to dance around. And with the way that A&M season went, and they had already lost a couple of high-profile players, or commits, I should say, there was some real concern about whether or not he would sign with A&M. He did, in fact, sign with A&M. I thought that was a critical signing there for A&M to hold together their class. They also get Reuben Owens on a flip, which we talked about. They were able to, for A&M, obviously, compared to last year's recruiting class,
right?
It's just like it was never going to match up. This feels like an important kind of holding together of some key recruits, including the number one prospect in Dave Campbell's Texas football in the state, in David Hicks. They're able to get him signed. So a really important grab, a really important signing there for A&M. So that's it. That's obviously not everything that happened while we were gone. Those were some of the headlines across the state.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you would like more and to be notified when they come out, go ahead and click that subscribe button right down there. You can also watch Texas Football Today every day live at noon on TexasFootball.com, Facebook, Twitch, and right here on YouTube. For more of the best coverage of Texas football in the Lone Star State, go to TexasFootball.com/subscribe.